All right, so I see this grant writing thing as a ministry. I believe that God has called me to be a grant writer to help other ministries grow in the kingdom of God so that they can maximize the impact that they have. But why are you charging? Why do you charge so much? Why is there a fee? Shouldn't you do this for free if it's a ministry? Not really. Today I want to talk about 3 reasons why I believe that it is important to not just pay me as a grant writer, but to pay grant writers in general. So let's get into this. Well, welcome back to the Nonprofit Missionary podcast. My name is Ken McQuiller, and we are here to help you to become true missionaries to your community by establishing faith-based nonprofits, by securing funding so that you can maximize your impact in the community. I think it's so important to have a grant writer on staff. I think that by having a grant writer, you can take your ministry and take your nonprofit to the next level. It's so important and it's such a key cog. However, I do understand that there is kind of the catch-22 of you don't have a lot of funding to pay a grant writer, and yet you know you need a grant writer to get more funding. I know that that's a big catch-22. And here I am as a grant writer saying, yes, if I'm gonna go with you, I'm gonna have to get paid. I'm not doing this so that I'm some kind of prosperity gospel preacher. I don't have a Bentley, I've got a minivan. I'm not trying to have you fund my next mansion. I own one house with 6 people that live in it. So why am I asking for you to pay for grant writing services? Not even just me, but also if you decide to hit me up, here's my information, I will be glad to have a conversation with you. But if you were to have anyone do grant writing, I would encourage you to pay them, and I want to talk about a few reasons why here in a minute. So let's talk about these 3 reasons here. The first reason is, I think, the most critical, and that's that it is technically unethical to work for free. Most of the time when someone is asking me to do grant writing for them, they ask, can I write you in as part of the grant? And technically, that's unethical. It's not illegal, it's unethical, which obviously there's a difference there. I am a part of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. It's a fundraising group primarily of grant writers, development directors, anybody that does fundraising. And as a member, you have to sign off on a code of conduct. One of those items on the code of conduct is that you do not do commission-based grant writing. What is commission-based grant writing? It's exactly that. If I'm writing a grant for an organization, and let's say that grant is $5,000, they give me a percentage of that grant for getting that grant. That's considered commission-based fundraising. And that doesn't just apply with fundraising. That would apply for not just grant writing, but also any type of fundraising. So let's say you're meeting with a major donor, and the only way you get paid for that meeting is if they give a gift of $10,000, and you get a cut of that. It's unethical, because not just because it's kind of wrong, but it makes grant writing look different. So if I know that the only way I can get a grant is if I make this organization look much bigger than it actually is, or promise that they're going to do a whole bunch of things that there's no way that they can deliver on based on their size, based on their scope, based on the logistics of what they say they're doing. But I get the grant anyway, so I can get the check. You see how it can make it a little bit more challenging in order to make grant writing a more fair and ethical game? It's important for fundraisers and grant writers to be looking for funds that help further their cause, not just so that nonprofits can get more money. So I think it's a good parameter in place to make sure that grant writers are not being sleazy about it, and they're actually looking for grants that match the mission and vision and can help an organization grow, not just give them a whole bunch of extra work because they're getting a 10% cut of it. So that's a big part of the ethical issue. Another big part of ethical issues is not all, most grants will say that you cannot use this grant for fundraising purposes. And grant writing is fundraising. It's a part of the deal. So if you can't use it for a fundraising banquet, you also can't use it to pay a grant writer. So let's say if you're applying for a foundation and they say that you can't use it for fundraising, you can't take 10%, $300, however much you do, however, whatever the agreement was, you can't make it based on that. I remember looking at a job application for a grant writer. This was maybe about a year ago. And one of the things that they said on it was your pay is based on the number of grants you get. And it's not a good way to do it. And it's going to be really hard to fulfill that type of position because someone can be really good at grant writing and still not get the grants that are needed, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But a lot of times when you're getting a grant, your funding has to move forward in time. You cannot do retroactive payments. So if I wrote your grant in April, but your program is going from July till June the next year, you're only getting paid for the grant period. You can't pay the grant writer for work that they did outside of the grant period. So you just have to be careful of that, especially when you're looking at the different parameters and limitations, because number one, it is unethical. But number two, if you have some of that in there, it can automatically be a red flag towards these foundations. Now, I'm saying this not in a mean or facetious way, but sometimes foundations are looking for reasons to not accept your application. They usually will get dozens, if not hundreds more than they're able to fund. So if they can look for quick reasons as to not to fund you, they're going to do that. So don't give them a reason to. Don't pay grant writers through grants that aren't funded yet. And also when it comes to ethics, think about it. Grant writing is work, just like any other aspect of your nonprofit. You wouldn't pay someone to clean your building only if the building is clean enough. You pay them, and if you don't like their service, then you decide not to pay them again. But you can't hire a cleaning service, have them clean your whole building, and then if you feel like it's satisfactory enough afterwards, you can do it. Or pest control. Let's say you found a mouse in your facility. You can't be like, well, I'm only going to pay you if I never see a mouse again. Like, it just doesn't work that way. But yet some people try to make it like that with grant writing. The bottom line is, if you are looking for grant writing, you have to pay in advance. Or, like me and other grant writers might do, you can work on a payment plan or something like that where you're breaking up the payments. But you can't say, we're only going to pay you if this grant comes in. Because that brings me to my second point. Number two, I can't guarantee funding. I can write the most bomb, amazing, person will cry, tears of joy grant out there, but they still might say no based on other extenuating circumstances. I can write a great grant, but if they're not adding new people to their funders list, then it doesn't mean anything. I'm still stuck. I'm not going to get a yes. I can have a great grant application that makes clear what you're doing, but if your board of directors is still a mess, then I'm not going to be able to take that next step. I can try my best to write the most amazing grant application, but if you aren't doing the due diligence of seeing if it's an actual fit for your organization, then what good is that going to do? Look, I'm not saying that I am the most amazing grant writer ever. I'm not. Like, there are times where I mess up. And there are times where other grant writers will mess up. But it's not because they mess up that you're not getting the funding. It's not always on the grant writer. Most of the time, it's the organization as a whole. Sometimes it can also be what the particular foundation can do. Like, I think of situations where I applied for grants multiple times and got rejected. Not because the quality of the grant was bad, but just because they didn't have the funding, or I was too small, or we didn't fit their mold. Or sometimes it can be because you're a faith-based nonprofit, which is annoying and frustrating. But I will say this, Some of those areas of rejection can be avoided if you take the time to reach out to the people in advance and have just a brief conversation about who you are and what you do, and if you're a fit in the first place. Because if you are, then you can avoid all of the other frustrations. However, even if you have a great grant application, even if it's the most amazing thing, I can't guarantee funding. As a grant writer, no one can guarantee funding. And I think when nonprofits go in with the mindset of, I'm hiring a grant writer because they're going to get us a lot of money, yes, it's very true. Yes, your return on investment will be tremendous. And it might not always necessarily mean that you're going to get a bunch of grants in the mail. Your return on investment will be great because as a grant writer, I'm doing a lot of research on your mission and vision so I can give you tools to then repurpose in other areas, whether you're talking newsletters, whether you're talking social media, whether you're talking when you are meeting one-on-one with someone. I can't guarantee that you're going to get grant funding though. I can do my best. And I will do my best. I'm going to position my own grant application to the best of my ability. However, it's still up to the foundation. It's still up to whoever is funding this particular grant that we're going for. And I think it's important to recognize that. I always leave that in, like if you're coming with me and signing a contract, this is not a guarantee of funds. I hope that you do get funded, and I'm not saying that you will not get any money, but I can't guarantee it. But yet I'm still doing the work to try to get you as close as you can and to get you to where you need to go. I think not paying a grant writer because they're not getting grants can be very similar to churches. Let's say your pastor was only paid when people get saved. He could have the most amazing sermon out there. He's getting people say amen every 2 minutes. He's got these crazy praise breaks in there. However, no one comes up to the altar to give their life to Jesus. So then everyone's like, well, you're not going to get paid this week. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Is that something that is on the pastor? Because according to my theological view, it's not the pastor that saves people, it's the Holy Spirit, right? And I think most people would agree with that, and I think most people understand that. So kind of in the same way, grant writers cannot guarantee what a funder is going to do. Yes, there are times where I'm pretty certain that I'm going to get this grant. I'm pretty sure based on the relationship that we built, based on the quality of the content, based on what they're looking for, that we're probably going to get this funded. But I can't guarantee it. And I think if you are going in as a nonprofit with the expectation of this person's definitely going to make us a whole bunch of money, yes, we will. But it won't always just be in grant checks coming in the mail like crazy. So I can't guarantee what ABC Foundation down the street's doing. I can only affect what I'm doing. And I'm going to try my best to get ABC Foundation to look at us and to look at your organization. But understand that there is a possibility that if I submit a grant, it could still get rejected. And if that's the case, we'll work on it, we'll get feedback, and we'll try again. So that's number 2. I can't guarantee grant funding. Number 3, a worker is worthy of their wages. Yes, I'm going to the Bible on this one. Luke 10:7, 1 Timothy 5:18. They both say a worker is worthy of their wages. It's a very simple verse, and I think it's a very powerful verse because it is important. A worker is worthy of their wages. I don't expect people to do stuff for free all the time. Sometimes if someone wants to volunteer, nonprofits all the time, they have volunteers that do a big bulk of their work and are so critical in helping grow the nonprofit itself. And there are times where things just cost money. Lights. if you're doing stuff inside, whether you're talking in the summer or in the winter, heating and air, it costs. The internet probably costs too much, but it still costs. If you are doing anything with food, even food pantries sometimes have to buy stuff, whether they have to buy food, whether they have to buy equipment to cook the food, whether they have to pay someone to organize everything, sometimes rent, it doesn't matter. Everything has some particular cost. Every church has a specific budget. Every nonprofit has a budget. And I think one of the things that really I want to encourage people to start looking at is, yes, there are a lot of free resources out there, and yes, you should look for discounted services when you can as a nonprofit. But do not push back on someone that's not offering something for free. Because it could be very high quality, and also they're typically running a business. Like if you're looking for a cleaning service, you're not going to tell them, well, I'm only going to do this if you're going to do it for free. It costs them for the supplies, it costs them for the time, it costs them for the labor, the travel. Like everything has a cost associated with it. And when you're looking at funding your nonprofit, there's a reason why you're looking for grants. It's not just so that you can have more of a nest egg. Typically, it's that you need more funds to operate your cause. You're looking to try to add more personnel to your staff or shift them from being part-time to full-time. And I totally get that, and I'm here for it. I'm doing the same as a freelance grant writer. I'm looking at ways that I can continue to grow my business so that I can provide not just for my family, but also be generous to give back to nonprofits, give back to the church, give back to missions, because I do think that that is an important aspect of it. But I think in the end, we have to be very diligent about saying a worker is worthy of their wages. We have to stop underpaying people just because we don't have the money. If we don't have the money, then we should not pay them. Period. We shouldn't be looking at a way to kind of finagle it and then say, well, this is ministry, so you should just kind of do your grant writing for free. Yes, it's a ministry, but I also want to make sure that I'm getting paid to do it. Now, does that mean that I'll never do grant writing for free? No. But it is a business, and it is a way that I am generating revenue for my family, and eventually for other people too. So a worker is worthy of their wages. Churches, if you are out there having people work 40 plus hours a week and paying them for 20 hours a week, please stop doing that. If the expectation is that they get paid, pay them what they deserve. If you cannot pay them, you have to be upfront with them. And you also have to take away the guilt of working less. Because if it's a 25-hour-a-week position, they should not be working 55 hours a week. They just shouldn't. Or if they are, it has to be very clear, you're getting paid for this amount of time. If you choose to, the rest of it is volunteer time. Yes, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but I think it's an important one to have. Because I think as the church, we need to be leaders in paying people what they deserve and paying people more than what they deserve. I think sometimes we get it right, and I think in like the Christian-led businesses, you see it. For example, Chick-fil-A, out of all of the fast food chains, they have the best hours, and typically their pay starts a lot higher. And also, I believe they help pay for college, which some others do, but yeah. And also, they're always closed on Sunday. Same with Hobby Lobby. They have less hours than your typical retail. They start pay higher, and I think they're still closed on Sunday. But still, I think it's important to just be the leaders in that and not the followers. Hopefully, as a nonprofit, as a faith-based nonprofit, you can be the ones that say, We pay our executive director the most because we believe in providing for them and everything like that. Now, am I saying that every nonprofit needs to be making six figures for their leadership? Not necessarily. I think having a reasonable salary, but on the higher end of what the median is, should be kind of where you go for. So, yeah, a worker is worthy of their wages. So, with all that said, maybe you're still sitting here like, well, I still can't really afford you. Your pricing is really expensive. But I know I need grant writing, and I know I need grant funding to help take us to the next level. How can I do that? There's a few ways. Number one, save. Just like if you were saving for a house, a car, or any other major expense personally, save for those bigger expenses that you have coming up. Maybe that is a grant writer. Maybe that's a certain type of equipment that you need to help maximize your growth as a ministry or as an outreach. Whatever it might be, just save. Take, just like you would any other expense. Like if you don't have a savings account for your nonprofit, you probably should open one anyway, just so that you have that mentality of continuing to grow your funding. But yeah, just take some time, save. Even if it takes you a year, even if it takes you 18, 24 months, save. Number two, ask a donor directly. If, let's say, you are looking to do a grant writing contract with me, doing like just like 5 or so grants, and it's going to cost you $3,000, ask a donor, hey, we're looking to try to get grant funding. Can you sew into this $3,000 or $1,000 of it, whatever it might be? Ask one of your donors. Ask someone that you really feel like God really wants them to be a part of this more. It's a good way to get more of an investment in that. And also, if it's too much for them, maybe ask them to consider breaking it up into different payments. There's a whole lot of different ways to do that. Last two things, this is a little bit more personal. Solicit free services from grant writers. There are a lot of things that you can do for free in the grant writing world. For example, I don't have a Patreon at this point. I don't have any kind of paywall with any of my podcasts. So every single one of them, I think this is number 28, is free. So you can take a look at it. You can look at it on the go, or if you're sitting down, whatever it might be. So that is an option, is looking at some of those free resources. Also, if you are looking to try to do grant writing classes, those exist. Eventually, I think I'll have a course on how to do that and whatnot, but they are available. Some are free, some are lower paid than hiring a grant writer. However, I think it's important to just look at some of the other free opportunities you have. You can also look at some AI tools. One that I would recommend is Grantable, that can help you write grants, especially if you have one that you've already gotten funded. So that's an option for you. But also the last thing I'll say on this is, if it's not free, look for some of my lower cost things. So just a shameless plug here. If you're looking for other services, here are some options that I can provide that aren't as expensive as just doing grant writing. I can get you a list of different grants to pursue. I usually provide anywhere from 10 to 12, depending on the scope and what you're doing. I charge less for that than I do for grant writing. If you're looking for just general coaching or advice on how to proceed in different things, we could sign up for a coaching session. That won't be as much. If you're looking for just a general fundraising plan for the year, I can put that together for you as well. So those are just a few different options if grant writing is a little bit too much for you right now. But I think the number one thing is just don't give up on it. Don't be like, well, grants stink. I think it's a great way that you can help further your ministry, further your nonprofit, because I know that it's needed. I know nonprofits and grants are one of the most underutilized resources in the church and one of the more underutilized resources for ministries out there. Don't be afraid of them. Ask the experts. And if you don't have the funding, take some time to save up for it. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Confessions of a Missionary. And I feel like sometimes I just go on like the negative here, and I'll still go with some negative stories or some challenging stories is probably a better way to phrase it. But I want to talk about one of my first experiences going to a different network. Because as a missionary, it's really hard to get all the funding you need from one particular area. Most of my funding comes from Northeast Ohio, Greater Cleveland, kind of in this direct area. But being from New York, I have been to a couple of New York conferences, and they've been very interesting. I think for me, one of the most interesting things is to see how other places do things. So I've been to New York, I've been to, when it comes to district councils for the Assemblies of God, New York, I've been to Indiana, Kentucky, and obviously Ohio. And it's just interesting to see how they do things differently and how the culture of that particular network is, whether it's like they're friendly, they're more formal, they're more informal, whatever it might be. And I don't know, it's just kind of, I think back to the first one I went to, and it was up in New York, it was up in Syracuse. And it was just kind of cool to be in a new, different place. I think one of the things I love most about my time as a missionary has been being able to travel, being able to see new things, because we made it a point to get over there enough time to kind of build relationships, say hi to people, and then we also explored places that we wouldn't normally explore. So I always think that that's a fun aspect of it, not just like the travel of it, but like being able to see different restaurants, different sites to see, whatever it might be. So yeah, I'm not saying get into missions to travel, but it has definitely been a perk for me, especially these last 9 years. So yeah, it's been fun here, and I'm excited for what God has for us next. And next week we're gonna be talking about some building stuff, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I don't know if I can stitch that to this one, but we'll see. But for now, this is Kevin Quiller with the Nonprofit Missionary Podcast. Stay focused, stay funded, and we'll see you next time. God bless.